Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On satellite imagery today, we've got clouds here along a boundary from the eastern interior, trailing on back down across just west of Cook Inlet, or actually including Cook Inlet here, down across Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, to a system farther down to the south there. To the west of that, flow from the north with higher pressure back out over the western Bering Sea, and the lower pressure associated both at the surface and the loft right through here. Got northerly winds, not all that strong, 15 to 25, a few higher gusts here coming southward. Breaks in the clouds, not a lot of shower activity out here, just surges of clouds from the Perlofts on down to the eastern Aleutians, again with some sun breaks this afternoon over the southwest interior, as well as from about Kotzebue Sound on up into the Noatak Valley areas, but back into the clouds with some areas of light snow up along the eastern and central Arctic coast, North Slope areas, on down into the eastern Brooks Range at the higher elevations, of course that falling in the form of snow. And for the southeast coast, southwest flow here, one band of moisture moving through into Canada. Looks like some breaks showing up as the precipitation becomes more showery. And even the southern areas there, that front starting to push off to the south, but another surge of moisture here off to the southwest. So we'll be getting a break overnight tonight, and then that area will be slipping on up tomorrow. And here across south central Alaska, southwest flow, periods of rain going on Prince William Sound, on up into the interior, all the way to the eastern Arctic coast. On the chart, we've got one low having moved inland there into the Yukon, about 1,002 millibars, and the front pushing eastward into Canada, still trailing back, especially earlier today, earlier on Friday, keeping the rain rather steady over the southern southeast coast, but breaking out the showers here, and in some cases ending altogether with some sunshine breaking out along the coastal areas. Rain and showers along the North Gulf Coast here, back into Cook Inlet, and then southward again along this trough axis. A couple of weak centers here. 1,099 millibar low south of the Alaska Peninsula. Another one there up over or just west of Kachemak Bay around Iliamna, with the trough up along the Alaska Range there, bringing some moisture into the eastern Tanana Valley. A few scattered showers back to the west, and then it kind of breaks out, and then with the main trough axis signifying the trough aloft here, we've got some scattered showers there along with some clearing periods and some snow falling again, as I mentioned, areas of the Brooks Range, central North Slope, on out to the Arctic coast. Very light though, and more of a mixed condition off to the east there, where the air mass is a little bit warmer, and then the colder air mass back here to the west, spilling on down into the northern Bering Sea with some brisk winds at times, again not all that strong, all the way down to the central Aleutians there out of the north, with looks like quite a few areas of clearing out here as well. Main high center back to the west, winds really light out there, and over the western Aleutians, that's going to hold most of this next system out to the west there. It'll weaken as it moves eastward. Some of that moisture will just mostly slide up into the Russian Far East. Otherwise, high continues to control much of the Bering Sea, especially out west. Light winds there, and areas of clear skies. There'll also be areas of low clouds and fog along with that could affect areas like Adak and Atka, possibly the Perlofts, but conditions staying dry. A little breezy, but losing the wind now for the Perlofts, and staying breezy along the coast, especially Nunavak Island, Tuksuk Bay there, and then again along the Alaska Peninsula, but nothing all that strong. Look for periods of rain from the Alaska Peninsula northward there, Kodiak Island, and especially out in advance of the front as it lifts up toward southern Cook Inlet. So rain spreading on up into Prince William Sound and off to the east, more showery over toward Yakutat. Areas of rain across Cook Inlet on up into the Susitna Valley mostly. Better chance of rain in the Susitna Valley than there will be in the Madanuska Valley, especially over toward the Alaska Range, Kuskokwim Valley, occasionally wet from the Kuskokwim Mountains out. Dry with maybe some clearing, and then back into the shower thread along the Yukon Delta coast, in across the central Koyukuk Valley areas or into the central interior, on up across the upper Yukon Valley with showers back to about the Koyukuk Valley around Bettles, and then look for some clearing west of there on out to Kotzebue Sound again. Offshore flow keeping it dry out here with some clearing, and then light snow along the Brooks Range and North Slope on out to the eastern Arctic coast. For tomorrow, we've got again that warm front moisture, the first surge kind of moving on through, and showers again for tomorrow afternoon for the southern southeast coast, maybe some clearing over the central areas, but the main rain still off the coast here with this next system that's going to be rolling on in. Weak low really not producing much in the way of weather up here over the eastern Copper River Basin, and a weak trough producing some mostly cloudy skies and only scattered showers here through the central interior, and rain down over the central southern Kuskokwim Valley, across south central Alaska, down to Kodiak Islands. That main low swings right over Shelikof Strait, and then some pretty good northwest winds, a little gusty there, maybe up to 35, possibly 40 miles an hour through channeled areas there in the normally windier areas of the Alaska Peninsula, and a little breezy up along the southwest coast, with another surge of moisture coming southward there with that trough periods of rain exiting St. Lawrence Island, down in along the southwest coast. Not too bad here again, Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, westward along the southern slopes of the Brooks Range, and then rain and snow showers up along the Arctic coast and North Slope. Outlook for Sunday, not much change up there, mostly cloudy, cool, areas of light snow on out to the Brooks Range. South of the mountains, though, partly to mostly sunny, a narrow band of rain and showers in the North Gulf Coast. This system bringing rain and another shot of wind in from the Pribilof Islands in across mostly just south of the Bristol Bay area, and showers diminish on out to the west with high pressure holding but slipping into the south, and it looks like a wet day mostly for the southeast coast here, and also showers over the eastern interior, but really from about the central Tanana Valley out west, could have thrown a few more breaks in the overcast here. So really looking pretty good in those areas for Sunday on out to the west and to the north. For temperatures, lows for tonight, 40s, lower 50s over the Panhandle, 40s south central Alaska, upper 30s in the interior, and for mid-20s to mid-30s from the Brooks Range on out. And then for the highs tomorrow, warming up pretty nicely here, up near 40, at least into the upper 30s to near 40, with lower 40s over the Kotzebue Sound area. Kotzebue, though, high 47 forecast, up to near 60 in the Tanana Valley around the greater Fairbanks area tomorrow, and that same pattern here over the southeast coast. 50s southern Alaska, lower 50s to the Alaska Peninsula, and upper 40s over the Bering Sea. And for the low Sunday morning, shaping up like this, mid-20s again to mid-30s. A little milder out along the Arctic coast, in that running 33 to 36 degree range for the lows. Upper 30s here in the northwest, Seward Peninsula as well, and lower 40s Yukon, the Yukon Delta. Looks like upper 30s for the Kuskokwim Delta, and McGrath, Sleepmute, lower 40s, mid 40s south central Alaska, upper 30s to near 40 for the eastern central Tanana Valley areas, lower 50s along the southeast coast. Highs for Sunday, not bad again up here in the Tanana Valley, upper 50s, maybe to lower 60s, and cooling back to about 50 out toward the Bering Sea, 30s north of the Brooks Range, with actually 50s to the south, mid to upper 50s south central Alaska, Susitna Valley, and the mid to upper 50 range also for the southeast coast. Out west, not a lot of change going on out there. The Bering Sea and the Aleutians mostly remaining in the 40s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving into flying weather here, IFR pretty widespread across the southeast coast and a little bit out to the west there, all the way up to about Yakutat. More IFR here streaming northeastward. Kodiak Island right on up to the North Gulf Coast, all of Prince William Sound, and quite an area of IFR there over the western Cook Inlet to the Alaska Range, over the Kuskokwim Mountains, also up over the eastern Arctic coast. And moving on to tomorrow afternoon, we've got some IFR lingering down here just along and off the coast of the Panhandle, otherwise marginal. IFR now southeast flow here, so banked up along the south side of the Kenai Peninsula on up into lowest conditions western Prince William Sound, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, and then the Kuskokwim Mountains, again on the east and southeast slopes. Otherwise, marginal VFR breaks out to VFR across the Brooks Range on out to the coast. And for Sunday morning, a little bit of IFR here on the western slopes of the Alaska Range, North Gulf Coast, marginal in the Panhandle, a lot of marginal here from the Bering Sea in the southwest with VFR up to the north and over the east. And for Sunday, really improving here over the interior, north of the mountains, even south of the mountains in the Sitna Valley becoming VFR in the Copper River Basin. Lower conditions here from the North Gulf Coast, IFR right in across the southwest interior and extreme southern Panhandle, areas of marginal conditions on out to the west. For passes, Anaktuvik and Anaktuvik marginal, and I believe Attican, same forecast, marginal VFR times tomorrow, or most of the time, threat of maybe a little bit of IFR early. Otherwise, Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR for sure, and rainy, probably more marginal with windy in that marginal zone too, as well as Isabel. Now Isabel may become VFR in the afternoon, while Mentasta will be VFR the entire day. Portage, occasionally marginal, and Tanita, occasionally marginal. Portage, IFR. And for Chilkoot and White, IFR early, becoming marginal. Freezing levels, still cold air up here from the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast with 2,000 feet south of the mountains there. At the surface, on out from about the, from the northern or the south side of the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. 2,000 feet plunging southward here over the northeast Bering Sea, 4,000 feet all the way down and south of the eastern Aleutians, and 6,000 to 8,000 feet here over the southeast interior, and 8,000 to 10,000 over the Panhandle. Icing, a little bit of possible mixed rime icing out here to the west, nothing too significant, and a little more widespread as you get into Bristol Bay and the Kenai Peninsula, and that zone kind of extends down to just south of the Panhandle there, which is moving northeastward, so the greatest threat will be down over the southern southeast coast. And for the jet stream, ridging here over the northeast Pacific, so southwest flow turns westerly and cuts across the southern Panhandle. So I have this trough out here, pretty good upper level low there near Kuskokwim Bay, centered at 18,000 feet with northeast winds at 33,000 feet at about 70 knots, coming around at 50. Otherwise, the Pacific jet staying well to the south. And 9,000 feet looks something like this. East-northeast again, 25 to 30 knots here through the northern interior, diminishing out toward the Arctic coast. Northwest, 20 knots, give or take here over the eastern Bering Sea, picking up to about 35 knots across the Alaska Peninsula, and southeast 30 to 40 here for the western Gulf, right up into the Kenai Peninsula, lighter for the Panhandle. And taking a look at 3,000 feet here, kind of a double low feature now down at this level. One near Kodiak, another one hanging back up over the southwest, southern Kuskokwim Valley. And we've got southeasterlies still at 30 to 40 knots, even at 3,000 feet, falling back to 25 knots to just 10 over the Panhandle. Easterlies up here a little brisk, 20 to 25 knots there, on out to the Norton Sound area, 15 to 25 for the Arctic coast. Northwest, 20 to 30 knots across the eastern Bering Sea, strongest to the Alaska Peninsula. Light winds, high pressure on out to the west. Turbulence, occasional moderate chop possible here, especially for small aircraft. Mechanical turbulence with the mountains involved. Western Arctic coast, western mountains here, the Brooks Range on down across the Seward Peninsula, along the southwest coast here, and of course the lee side of the Alaska Range and Aleutian Range, and the North Gulf Coast as well, with areas of light to isolated moderate chop filling in the remaining areas. And after the break, we'll be back with the marine forecasts.
NOAA's national marine sanctuaries protect areas of national significance for their exceptional natural beauty and resources. Research and monitoring expeditions provide scientists with valuable knowledge about the biodiversity and ecological integrity of these fragile underwater systems. The knowledge does not come easy. Their mission is challenging and sometimes dangerous, but these risks pale in comparison to the wealth of information that awaits them. This is Expedition Sanctuary Quest. Preparing a research vessel to go to sea is a huge undertaking. Over the course of one day, the empty ship transforms into a high-tech research platform. Tons of equipment, provisions, and supplies have to be loaded and stowed. The crew must double-check every last detail. Once at sea, the ship must be entirely self-sufficient. To keep everything running smoothly, the crew charts a cruise plan to coincide with the schedule of research. The goal of this expedition is to assess the health of offshore and nearshore marine ecosystems. The NOAA ship MacArthur will spend 2 months at sea, focusing on all the national marine sanctuaries along the West Coast, from Southern California to Northern Washington. Research takes place around the clock, and as night closes over the sanctuary, a team of special map makers deploy their side-scan sonar. The sonar will provide acoustic information to make detailed maps of the ocean floor. As one set of scientists are finishing up the night shift, another is being called to start their day. Wake-up calls come early, usually before the sun is up. By dawn, Chief Scientist Sarah Fangman is on the bridge, checking the plans for the deployment of the remotely operated vehicle.
Our weather has turned a little bit, and so we're going to have to move to a more protected area where we can work. Well, as long as we're heading in this direction, because the weather is forcing us that way, we'd like to stop.
Once calmer waters are found, the science continues. The remotely operated vehicle crew prepares their machine for its dive. The ROV allows the scientists to penetrate the unexplored depths, which account for 90% of the ocean. There is no idle time. While the ROV is being prepared, another group of scientists takes seawater and surface plankton samples. As the samples are collected, they go straight to the onboard lab, where they are processed and analyzed.
The ROV can stay down many hours, whereas divers are limited with supplied air, and we can rotate shifts and go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The cameras on the ROV are the scientists' eyes into the ocean. These cameras will confirm what the scientists have found through the side-scan sonar mapping. The ROV also allows scientists the opportunity to do species counts and more detailed habitat classification.
Yes, look at the anemones and the corals, cup corals.
Oh yeah.
That is
excellent.
gorgeous.
Excellent. Habitat's changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Oh,
did you
nice
see it
one.
just caught
Hey,
that?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Oh yeah.
A research ship can be a dangerous place with hazards all around. Everyone must be alert to these and know how to deal with emergencies. Fire and evacuation drills are performed without warning at any time of the day or night. As the science work goes on, the ship's crew also works around the clock. Engineers keep the engines operating properly, while the deck officers constantly monitor the ship's location. The deck crew operates all the machinery needed to perform the research, and the galley crew has to be sure all 40 people on board get fed. As night falls again, another shift of scientists begin their work in trawling for plankton.
Half moon out there, so there's quite a bit of light, which will affect how fast and how high these critters come up in the water column.
Okay, watch the slack there, folks.
Okay, got her. Let her go.
One more step in measuring productivity of an area.
Juvenile deposits, krill, squid, copepods.
After a long, wet night, dawn finally comes. The ship begins a transit to the next area for work. As miles of ocean slide beneath the hull, the observations and data collecting continue. Seabird and marine mammal observers are out working. Bird and whale counts help determine the health of a given area. For 2 months, this grueling schedule of day and night scientific work continues, searching for the understanding that will provide solutions to better manage resources within our national marine sanctuaries.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea ice analysis for today. Not much change from yesterday other than the orientation I'm using here, which kind of put this up under the label. But still a little bit of new ice forming up here. This area extending southward. And it looks like next week colder air coming in. So might see some ice start to form along the barrier islands in the middle or latter part of next week. And for the marine forecasts, south winds 20 turn southeast 25 on up the coastline there, and then more of an easterly direction, and actually tend to increase there off to the west at 30 knots, seas otherwise 6 to 7 feet, 10 to 15 knot winds here across the inside waters. For Sunday, winds pick up here, even over the inside waters of Clarence Strait, coming up to 20 knots, and Northern Canal south 25 knots, 5-foot seas. 15 to 20 knot southerlies on the south coast, mostly southerly at 20 knots for the north coast with 7 to 8 foot seas. For Cook Inlet, northeast 25 knots all the way down across Kachemak Bay with 7-foot seas, and then southeast 25, 8-foot seas there for the Barren Islands, 30 knot winds out of the east here for the western North Gulf Coast, east side there, just south of Prince William Sound. We've got some gales out for Saturday, 25 knot winds in the forecast of Prince William Sound. And then those will be much lighter on Sunday, down to 15 knots there. Cook Inlet 10 to 15, variable. Westerlies 15 to 20, Kachemak Bay and the Barrens, and south to southeast 15 to 20 for the North Gulf Coast. Saturday, northwest 20 for Bristol Bay, 25 knot winds across the Alaska Peninsula, 7 to 8 foot seas, and from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, 25 knot winds out of the west. And 20 knot winds there for Shelikof Strait and the east side of Kodiak Island. Then for Sunday here, west winds 30 knots here in the zone east of Kodiak, otherwise Shelikof Strait southwest at 20, and 20 knot winds from Sitkinak turn westerly here at Castle Cape and extend over to Cape Sarachef. North side of the peninsula, on up into Bristol Bay, we've got small craft advisories out for Sunday with 6 to 9 foot seas. Not too bad in the Aleutians tomorrow. There's 15 to 20 knot winds, 25 knot winds there south side of Unalaska Island, and northerlies falling back to 10 knots out west with that big area of high pressure, and that'll continue through Sunday as well. Northwest, kick it up to 15 for a change, and 4 to 5 foot seas with 20 knot winds here over the central Aleutians, all the way over to Unalaska Island. And for the southwest coast, 25 knot winds look pretty common with a northwest direction south of Nunivak Island, and north at 25 from the north side here on up to St. Lawrence Island with 20 knot winds from the north here for St. Matthew Island, and those turn northwest across the Pribilofs with seas running at about 6 feet. And then for Sunday, got small craft advisories continuing here over the northern Bering Sea and along the southwest coast with 7 to 8 to 9 foot seas, 6 feet here south of Nunivak Island, northwest 20 for the Pribilofs with 9 foot seas, so small craft advisories out for that zone as well. And up along the Arctic coast, east or northeast to 20, eastern Beaufort Sea coast turning east on the central coast, increasing to 25 knots, and then northeast 25 from Cape Beaufort on down to Wales. And small craft advisories hold here from Wales to Cape Thompson through Sunday, lighter up along the coast, and then kind of kicking back up to 20 knots over toward demarcation point. With seas not too bad here, 3 to 4 feet central coast there, and up to about 5 or so here from Wales on up around the Capes. And for tonight again, low pressure here moving to just southwest of Kodiak Island. A lot of rain from the low center across Kodiak right up into southern Alaska here with a front spreading eastward eventually, trying to get into the Copper River Basin. A trough with more rain northern Kuskokwim Valley becoming showery back to the northwest. Rain and showers to the northeast. Areas of light snow along the Brooks Range and the eastern Arctic coast. And warm front spreading some rain up toward the Panhandle. And it looks like tomorrow that will mostly move off to the east and look for some improvement. Still showers lingering in areas throughout the day tomorrow. Next batch of moisture right off the coast. And southern Alaska, periods of rain, showery, maybe some clearing over the interior areas. The Arctic coast, rain and snow showers possible. The entire stretch of the coastline, but mostly sunny from the Noatak Valley down along the coast here. This area of rain sliding southward. So on Sunday, that'll actually develop into another low center and push some rain into Bristol Bay and along the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. Rain and showers north Gulf Coast on down the Panhandle. Have a nice weekend.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.